Well, first of all, welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for showing interest. As a starting point, I'd like to first of all say a big shout out and thanks to Absa Work in Progress, hosting the session and making today possible. For those of you who don't know, Work in Progress is an Absa innovation lab, a co-working space based out of Woodstock Exchange in Cape Town. Work in Progress houses about 40 or so enterprises, businesses, entrepreneurs, predominantly in the fintech space. It's a co-working ecosystem that has been built to support and nurture startups and provide them with the tools and networks that they need to grow sustainably. So if you're looking for a new co-working space or interested in becoming a member of Work in Progress, please email cpt@workinprogress.coza and I'll give you all information around available space, around rates and benefits. Just as a little bit of a background, I was actually scheduled to give this talk to in real life to the members of Work in Progress, but for reasons that we're all aware of, we've taken this into the virtual world. So thanks again for making this public and being able to get more eyeballs and more people benefiting. So also, can I ask, please direct all your questions to the comment section below. My team is going to be collating all these questions. I'll address as many of them as possible at the end of the session. This plans to be about a 60-minute session, but we've got at least 30 minutes to answer various questions or particular challenges that you may be facing in the marketing sphere. So pop those through into the comments. You're also welcome to send emails to the address also on the screen, and I'll be able to respond directly to you. Great. So for those of you who's joined, welcome. You haven't missed much. We're ready to get cracking. My name is Andrew Watson, and I'm a marketer, brand strategist, ad man, or madman, depending on who you ask, startup founder, and SME owner. Thankfully, marketing is not all smoke and mirrors, as this image may suggest. Good marketing works, bad marketing does not. So welcome again for those who've just joined. Today, I'm going to cover a few key topics. I'm going to offer some useful jargon-free marketing theory for business owners. I'm going to include some best practice insights based on working with many SMEs and startups over the years. I also want to give you a couple of practical tips to improve your marketing efforts from day one, i.e. from today. And I'm also going to share a couple of relevant advice based on coronavirus and the effect it has on small businesses. It would be remiss for me to sidestep that and pretend we're operating in a bubble. Of course, this needs to be addressed. And lastly, as I said, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A session. So please put those questions coming through in the comments. I'll answer as many as possible. Great. So lots to cover over the next hour. Thanks again for joining. Thanks for giving up your time, but let's get cracking. So a very good question on the screen. Why should I listen to this guy? I studied marketing, a marketing honors degree at Rhodes University. I love telling people that I'm a Rhodes scholar. It makes me sound very brainy. But after leaving Grahamstown as a rodent, I spent a couple of years in the UK working in asset management. I then found my calling and joined Ogilvy Cape Town, where I worked on the Cadbury account, followed by the Volkswagen account. And hand on heart, it was an incredible time of my life. The working environment, young, vibey people, kick-ass creative ideas, solving problems, TV shoots, new product launches, car launches, boozy lunches, new business pitches, award ceremonies. It was absolutely the life. I moved across to a rival agency, BBDO, where I spent a couple of years looking after their account management team, as well as looking after a big chunk of their agency's clients. I was lured back to Ogilvy because they had recently acquired the new Castle Light account, which was very exciting for me, and suddenly having access to beer budgets. Wow, I mean, that's a real thing. This resulted in overseas TV shoots, hanging out with rappers and international music moguls, working on the cutting edge of advertising. It really was an amazing time. So after 10 years of this gig, I bet you're wondering, well, why did you leave? Well, I suppose if I'm really honest with myself, I realized that while learning my trade at some of the top agencies in the country, working on some of the globe's favorite brands, I had a bit of an epiphany moment when I realized that the majority of businesses were being largely ignored or fleeced by the broader marketing fraternity. If you weren't one of the big banks or telcos or insurers, retailers, FMCG companies, alcoholic beverage manufacturers, you're pretty much unimportant, which is unfortunate, sad, but true. So my business partner, Dylan Ferguson, him and I decided to build an alternative model to the ad agency. And we developed and we co-founded Watson Ferguson Marketing Agency in 2016. Our goal was to deliver integrated, cost-effective, and impactful marketing solutions to all businesses, whether they be old or new, big or small. That was the mission. And I suppose why I'm here today is the experience that we gained working with many of these SMEs and startups over that period birthed Brandright, a marketing program, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more later on. So a question that I get asked all the time, so why are startups and SMEs so important? And again, just for those who've just joined us recently, welcome. Good to have you here today. You've just arrived at the right stuff for the good stuff. All right. So according to a report published by the Small Business Institute in 2016, which is the closest figures we have, there were 86,000 small and medium-sized enterprises in the country. That's not your micro enterprises, it's small and medium-sized. But these accounted for almost a quarter of all the jobs here in South Africa. President Ramaphosa has recently asserted that the growth of the economy will be sustained by small businesses, as it does with many other countries. Given the huge growth of SMEs now contributing a massive 42% to our GDP, this sector is simply the future. Furthermore, according to the National Development Plan, by 2030, 90% of new jobs will be created by SMEs. So the numbers are very clear. SMEs are incredibly important and vital to South Africa's future. The big issue is that they receive very little support. Ravi Govender, head of small business enterprise at Arrival Bank, said that although statistics vary, on average, about 50% of startup businesses in South Africa fail within the first 24 months due to the inability and inexperience of their owners. Across the Atlantic, Forbes went on to explain that 20% of their small businesses fail within that first year, 30% in the second year, 50% by year 5, and a full 70% of small businesses in the States don't make it past their 10th birthday. Yikes, the odds are not in our favor. So SMEs are important, but fail more than they succeed. The big question is why? Forbes also cited a few common reasons in their research study. And a couple of them I would like to share with you. The first thing they noticed was that the businesses that failed had no vision, because successful businesses, the successful business owners, they've got a very clear vision, their purpose, their mission, why they are doing this. If you don't have that, you don't have that driving force, it can result in your business not making it. The other thing cited was no niche. A niche refers to your target market or area of specialization. Because as the saying goes, if you make your business attractive to everyone, it's going to end up being attractive to no one. We can't all be Coca-Cola, guys. So if you haven't worked out that key niche, those core people that you're trying to connect with, sorry, I'll just move the cursor. Sorry about that. If you haven't worked out that niche, then you are definitely going to be spending a lot of effort and time potentially talking to the wrong person. Lastly, they also cited that no marketing plan was evident. So a marketing plan practically outlines how you intend to take your product or service to market, identifies your niche, and then various marketing strategies that you'll employ to reach them. Also from the state, CB Insights analyzed 101 business failures to compile a report of top 10 reasons why entrepreneurs fail. Because guys, there's gold in looking at businesses that haven't made it. And one of the key areas, surprise, surprise, was poor marketing. They went on to say, if all your capital is spent in product development and nothing is left over for marketing, you've got a big problem. Acquiring customers, getting known, and creating a brand can be very, very hard, and as a result, gets ignored. If marketing isn't your strong suit, hire a marketing firm that can track with a track record of measurable success in your area. So basically, they said a lot of SMEs and startups found that, you know what, marketing is so tricky. Let's just forget about it. We'll get into it one day, and they don't. Hence realizing why a number of these businesses have failed. So if we can summarize that, if marketing is so important for SME success, where are they getting it wrong? Also looking to Forbes's research, they went and analyzed, and they found that there was a number of key marketing issues that SMEs were found guilty of. Well, the first is you don't do any marketing. Okay, so that's quite an obvious one. It goes without saying, but also what is marketing? Because some guys, they think they're doing activity, but it's not really marketing in the truest sense. So not doing any marketing is obviously a first problem. You're a Me Too business, so what that effectively means is that there's no real daylight between yourself and your competitors. That's obviously a huge issue, because if you're all looking the same, how's a customer going to choose you over somebody else? So that's such a key reason. You're trying to reach the wrong audience. So I spoke earlier about the niche and working out that exact niche. You could be spending all your effort, time, and money focusing on person Y, when actually person X is the person that's going to be able to take your business and make it really fly. So not knowing who that audience is, or just trying to be too broad or slightly off center, can have huge effects. You have no idea what your competitors are doing with their marketing. Guys, what your competitors are up to gives you a huge amount of clues. If all your competitors in a category are doing something, maybe you need to be doing that. There's a chance that you need to do it. Because it's a table stake in your industry. Or if everyone's yin, you can yang, do something different, off center, stand out. So, but still being able to understand what your competitors are doing and not living in a silo or bubble is crucial. You have no written out marketing plan. As cited in the previous slide, no marketing plan. That's your strategy. Think of you starting your business without a business plan. You'd go nowhere. So having that marketing plan written out, and I'll tell you a few tips on how best to do that shortly. You blew your budget on just one thing. I get so many SMEs and startups who've put all their marketing rands, literally all their eggs into one basket, one big launch event, one magazine title, one piece of advertising, and they wonder why it didn't work. It's having everything going just in one spot is just way too risky. You don't track results. Of course, if you don't have feedback loops so that you can understand what things are happening, who's buying, what results, how your campaign is performing. If you don't have those things, and you don't have those results coming back, how do you pivot? How do you change? How do you improve? You don't have a website. Wow, guys, if you don't have a website, then we're in big trouble. But I'm going to talk about it because a lot of guys do have websites, but they're horrific. They don't actually do anything. They can cost an absolute fortune, but they don't contribute to the business. So I'm speaking quite a bit about websites a bit later. It's something hugely beneficial that we've built lots of websites over time, not because we wanted to build lots of websites, just because our clients absolutely needed them. You put more work into your social media than your website. A lot of people have become very excited about social media and are opening up Instagram accounts and spending lots of time on LinkedIn and everything, but they've totally sidestepped the website. The website is still absolutely crucial and your hub for all marketing activity. So beyond what Forbes said across the Atlantic, we've seen exactly the same traps or issues felt by many SMEs and startups here in South Africa. So what can we learn from these businesses? What can we learn from the guys that launched, that expanded, that took on the world? What can we learn from the guys that closed their doors? There's gold in everything. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of theory, but I'm going to try and make this as palatable as possible. Many startups and SMEs get confused with all the jargon, and us marketers unfortunately aren't helping things. But what's the difference between marketing, branding, advertising, communication, above the line, below the line, digital? What does it all mean? The truth is, and this is through our experience, that it's not really rocket science. On the one hand, you develop your brand. On the other hand, you identify your core target market. Then you find the best ways to connect brand to market. It's that easy. Listen, admittingly, there are lots of ways to connect your brand to market. We call these channels. It could be a fancy TV ad, it could be a radio spot, it could be an email that you send, it could be a Facebook post. But knowing the strength And when to use each of these channels and how to use each of these channels, when to use each of these channels is important. Often with any type of advertising communication, there's a production element and there's a media element. Production, making of the ad, and the media, the flighting of it, the getting it out there, both of which required. A lot of guys end up spending too much of their time on one or the other. You both need to be satisfied. And when we're writing a marketing strategy, and it's in the simplest form, that's exactly what we're worrying about. We're looking at working out what this brand is all about, working out that target market, and finding the most optimal ways to connect it. So you can use that approach too, and I'll give you a few more pieces of information there. So let's talk brand, because again, if you ever meet a marketer, that's all they can speak about: brand, experience. But brand is key. But even if you go just one step before brand, no matter how you cut it, without a solid product or service, the odds of success are minimal. And I know it's quite controversial. A lot of guys saying, listen, a brand can change everything regardless of the product or service. I've seen the other side. You've got to have that, because no amount of clever advertising or marketing or tactics will help in the long run. No matter how much you polish a poo, it's still a poo. I'm allowed to say poo, I've checked. All right, but converting your product and business into a customer-facing brand is crucial. So how do you do that? I hear you thinking. Well, building a brand is actually much easier than you realize. It's all about answering a couple of questions. Listen, they've got to be the key questions, but but answering these questions and being honest with yourself and truthful with yourself and when penning this is absolutely paramount. These questions would include, who is that target market? So as I said earlier, we spoke about niche, we spoke about target market. Unless you get that right and you're very clear about it, and you've got probably some data from your past sales, you probably got a lot of various indicators that may work out and help you define that target market. I would go as tight as possible. Don't be for males and females over 25 years old. Guys, everyone's going to be there. Who is that perfect animal? Who's that perfect individual that is going to resonate with your product or service? Who are your competitors? So what does your competitor set look like? Who's actual like for like? Who's stealing your lunch? Who is operating in slightly alternative industries that's also a part of your competitor set? Knowing who these players are, what they're doing, and keeping a close eye is crucial. How your category is behaving, your industry is behaving. What's it like at the moment? What's your collective operating? What are the stresses you're feeling as a category industry? That's important to document. Understanding that. What's your category doing? What are your customer benefits? So what's the actual benefit you give to your customer? It sounds such an obvious one, but a lot of businesses haven't actually worked out how are we benefiting the customer? How are we making their lives better? Working out what do you satisfy them? Your value. So what do you value as a brand? What's important to you? What's kind of below the surface? What's your personality? Your personality is going to affect your tone of voice, the language you use, how you engage. Knowing your personality is absolutely crucial. How you look. So defining that. And too many brands, they end up looking a bit like a dog's breakfast because it's all over the place. Defining how you look and being consistent, I'll speak a lot about that later on, is vital. And also what makes you different and unique. So what makes you special? What makes you different to the others? What makes you a unique business? Forbes cited about you're a Me Too business. So this idea of, well, how do you make sure that you aren't a Me Too business? How do you make sure that you're feeling a little bit different or special to the rest of the category, even if the product is quite similar? Brand does give that to you, which is amazing. What problem are you solving for your customers? So what are you actually doing? It's Pablo Fernandez speaks a lot about this. What is the problem that you are solving? Because businesses and brands should be solving a problem. Very rarely they aren't. So what is it? Get crystal clear on that. What is your reason for being, your purpose? At Ogilvy, we called it your brand ideal. So what is the thing that warrants your business being around? How are you changing the world? How are you impacting humanity? Important questions. So these brand fundamentals that I've just rattled off affect everything you do and everything your customer sees. So key. And this is particularly crucial for more technical businesses. So I'm shouting out to you guys in fintech, you guys in ICT, in tech, in financial services. Don't assume that your decision maker or buyer is technical too. Just because you speak in a unique language filled with all sorts of terms, don't assume that the person on the other side that's going to be making the call is fluent in that language too. Ensure your broader audience can understand your product, understand what you do, so be simple and clear. And we kept this front and center when we worked with a business called Propel. They specialize in sectional title finance, a very unique portion of financial services. And off the back of that, we broke out and we launched Addendum, which focused on supply chain finance, as well as a unique way for large corporates to access funding from corporate to corporate. So really innovative new ways of financial services, which is a complicated space for most in the first place. And keeping that simple, clear, understood, being able to talk to a broader market was something that we absolutely kept front and center, and something that should be done no matter what. But either way, for all startups or SMEs, spending any marketing rands before these foundations are rock solid could result in a complete waste of budget, complete waste of time. And often this is short supply for most startups and SMEs. You know, a brand can actually be so powerful that the product can come a little bit later on. I'll give you a great example. So Sia Khaleesi and Tim Whitehead, they came to us, two rugger buggers came to us and said, listen, we've got this idea of launching a men's underwear brand. And they had a name and they had the idea. So we went and set about and we worked. We had to spend some time looking at the category, understanding both bricks and mortar stores as well as online. What's the world of men's underwear look like? We then helped develop the brand, we developed the logo, and then we developed a really smart document that the guys could actually take to the garment manufacturers and find someone to source and make the actual products themselves, the actual underwear. They found one, guys got on board. Then we went and built their e-commerce website, which was their main channel of selling. So you can see that by developing that brand and getting all those things right, could actually the product itself could follow on. It gave them some breathing room to get that product really right and perfect as the process continued on. And those guys have done so well. I mean, Frankie's is available in cotton on. They've expanded into women's underwear. They've gone into socks. So they really are doing some exciting things. Okay, moving on. So again, as I mentioned to you, marketers love talking about brand. They love talking about experience. But how customers experience your brand is one of the most important things I'm going to be talking about today. Because once your brand is looking good, feeling solid, you should turn your efforts to some customer-facing assets. Some guys call these touch points, but no matter what you call them, ensuring that every time your customer experiences your brand, it should be professional and it should be consistent. This comes down to the email signature that you send off, the business card that you hand over, your website, your brochure, your team's uniform, your point of sale elements, your packaging. If these items look shabby, you're going to lose trust and confidence in the eyes of your customers, no matter how good your product or service is. I mean, that's the sad point. No matter how good a product or service is, if these things are wanting, you're in trouble. If I receive, and a personal example, if I receive a business-related email from someone with a Gmail address, I can't take them too seriously. If a supplier's website is poorly designed and confusing, I doubt their ability. A nice example that I often use is, imagine you sitting on an airplane about to take off, and the air hostess, she walks over and you suddenly take a look and she's looking disheveled, you know, shirt untucked, hair in disarray, makeup smeared, doesn't look pristine at all. No matter who you are, you're suddenly going to wonder, is this plane going to take off? Am I going to get to the other side? Now, how crazy is that? Regardless of the quality of the pilot, the age of the airplane, the quality of the engines, because all these perceptions matter. And every touch point or every moment that your brand connects with a customer matters. Also, consistency is so important. Let's talk about this in the form of a personal interaction. If you were to meet me today and I was all very serious, and then tomorrow I was all happy-go-lucky, and the next day I was all down in the dumps, whether you realize or not, consciously or subconsciously, you're going to take a step back because you don't quite know what box to put Andrew in. We deal with brands in exactly the same way. If inconsistent, we take a step back. If your business card doesn't match your email signature, which looks nothing like your brochure, which looks nothing like the magazine ad that is out there, your customers are going to be less likely to engage. There's just too much risk. When I worked on Cadbury, and you saw it also in Unilever and many other brands, when you're just doing a simple product packaging upgrade, say how many millions are spent just to say, same great stuff on the inside, just looking a bit different on the outside. I mean, that's just such an obvious thing. If Aromat changes or Royco packs change, they've put so much effort in updating and telling that customer that don't worry, guys, it's the same good stuff. Don't freak out. Don't worry about it. So the same thing must be applied for our businesses. And in fact, when I worked on Castle Light, one of our first big exercises was around looking at, they had thousands upon thousands of permanent Castle Light branded collateral out there. So imagine all these permanent pieces sitting in taverns, sitting in bottle stores, in restaurants. And what we realized is that they all looked like a dog's breakfast. It was all over the place. And it was different bottles, different labels, even the little snow castle, the little indicator that tells you when your beer is extra cold. An amazing piece of technology, by the way. That sold lots of beer. But just that little icon, there's about 10 of them in the market. The background was different. Sometimes the bottles were housed by ice, others by snow, others by mist and fog. So getting that one brand looking consistent across all touch points was a big project and a massive undertaking. So if the big guys are worried about the power of consistency, you should too, because the power is absolutely there. Great. So I'm going to go on to websites. As I mentioned to you, websites are such an important part of any small and medium-sized business, any startup. And I'm a convert of note. So, on the topic of customer-facing assets, a company website is the epicenter of your online activity. Potential customers are almost always going to be looking for additional information from that site, whether it be technical information, product information, team information, contact details. That's the space to be. It's a critical resource and something especially important for growth. But a lot of guys end up favoring the social media platforms. And I'm not mocking social media. I'm a big fan. But in an expensive website, I think you guys are missing something. Because having a hardworking, lead generating, brand reflective website is absolutely vital. Hardworking, it needs to do something. Lead generating, it needs to probably do something. Often it's leads in the case of most SMEs and startups. Brand reflective, you've gone through that whole exercise. You've worked out what your brand is about. You've answered those questions. You've got to make sure that that's coming through in your website. But beyond credibility, because gone are the days of having just a credible, we've got to look like a legit business. Let's put up a website. So beyond the idea of credibility, working out the role of your website is crucial. It needs to achieve something, guys. It can't just be out there looking pretty. It needs to generate leads, generate sales, find talent. It needs to do it's got to be something that is the reason for its being. And you've actually got to build your website around that first. You don't kind of work that out at the end. It's got to be worked that way around. Secondly, it also needs to be responsive. And that, in other words, means that it needs to be viewable on any screen size, whether it's a desktop, a mobile phone, tablet, phablet, doesn't make a difference. You've got to have one website that can be viewable on everything. And especially today where 70, 80% of all online views in South Africa is via mobile, working out mobile first is probably the solution. Having a very pretty desktop looking website comes very much secondary, simply because your market's not going to be using it as much. Your website also needs to include search engine optimization or SEO fundamentals, so it can be found and ranked by Google. Part of that is setting up your Google business listing, and that's such an easy way to boost your Google ranking. as well as offer huge volumes of organic or free traffic to your website. So a couple of basics that you can do just by setting up their Google business listing, and it takes you 5 minutes, is it's so key. You get a huge amount of people that are looking for your business, one click, and there we go. So that's a bit of a no-brainer. Get that done. Your website also needs to be straightforward in terms of flow and navigation. We call this your user experience or UX. But effectively, it's all about ensuring that your customers or users that are visiting your website don't get lost or stuck, because you know what happens? They'll then bounce. So making sure that the website has a nice flow, that you're introducing your brand, your product, various pieces in the right quantities with the right amount of content in the right order is crucial. If you end up having it too much content, if you end up having complicated navigation, guys are going to get stuck. And listen, they're going to go. It's as simple as that. You also need Google Analytics to be plugged in. And I mention Google a lot. I sound like an advocate. I am an advocate. I'm not paid by them, I promise. But Google has just made it so much simpler for all of us. So for me, why mess with that? Google Analytics needs to be plugged in, as this will give you important data in which to make improvements on both your site. So if you're seeing guys getting stuck on a certain page, there could be clues to make that fix. So it gives you important information on your site, as well as campaign effectiveness. If you start campaigns and start driving people to your website and it's not converting, that will also start, Google Analytics will be the first way you can actually start getting some measurable information to make some changes. Because if it doesn't get done, it only gets done if it gets measured. That's a saying that we can all live by. Most importantly, and this is where we see a lot of guys, especially who've built their website themselves through Wix or GoDaddy or one of those kind of bootstrap programs, is what's the 10-minute read? What's the 10-minute read? And even at 10 minutes may be too long. Because when last did you spend a full hour, your whole lunch break? When last did you spend an hour on somebody's website? Ain't nobody got time for that. Guys, we've built tons of websites, and I can't overstate the importance, because when you are engaging with that, you don't have the luxury of case studies and lots of videos and all sorts of things. You've got to be able to explain things succinctly. There's a lovely saying that, sorry for the long letter, I did not have time for a short one. Getting your site working well, getting your site giving it right amount of information, the right amount of time is absolutely important, because you're going to just lose people. You're going to lose the interest. Done properly, a website is going to do a brand job, as well as it's going to do an actual job for your business. Let me tell you quickly about a jeweler client of ours. So the client came to us before we engaged. They'd spent about 100,000 Rand on a website. And the website was very complicated. Lots of content. It kind of looked like an e-commerce site, but in the end, you couldn't actually buy diamonds or stones, or you had to actually basically send an email. So very complicated, lots of stuff, content, bells and whistles, functionality. And we just said, hey, is this working? Are you actually getting leads coming through? And the owner said, no, not really. So we set about, we built a new website for half the price. And within the first 2 weeks, through the website, before we plugged on the advertising, before we started directing any traffic to the site, 2 leads came via the website, which subsequently paid for the website. So there you got a lovely stark contrast of marketing as an expense, a loss, a waste, or marketing working for you, making you money. So just as it is, that's also the power of a solid site. Once your assets are in place, now you can start developing that marketing strategy I spoke to a little bit earlier about. Effectively, how best to spend your marketing rands that you have available to achieve your objectives. So what do you want to do? Is it about launching a product? Is it about launching your brand? Is it about showcasing something new? But it follows that principle of connecting your target market to your brand. Writing that plan with the same rigor that you wrote your business plan should be the discipline. Also, if you're utilizing bigger channels like TV, radio, press, magazine, out of home, or billboards, You may need some support of a dedicated media agency, because they'll need to write a media strategy, which will plug into your marketing strategy. So that's important. But once your strategy is looking good, working out what your key message is or your creative big idea is the next step. Because once you've worked out, okay, who am I talking to? What's the best way to reach them? Once you've worked those kind of building blocks out, then what are we actually going to say? What are we trying to do? What do we want to convince them? How are we changing behavior is important. So what's that campaign message? What's the reason for speaking up, taking this moment, spending this money to share some message? What is it? What's the creative big idea? How are we going to cut through the clutter and make sure that it stands out? Also, your next step then will be developing the creative assets. So this could be the magazine ad, this could be the display banner. Getting those things built is important. Again, you can see how this is a linear process. You don't start at, sometimes get clients ask us, hey, can you help us do a social media campaign? Or hey guys, can you help us do a magazine campaign? And we're like, oh, that's step 10. We've got a few steps beforehand before we can get there. But I suppose, once you're at that stage, you've worked things out, you've worked out your ads, then you can kick off that launch or that rebrand or that product launch. And then based on the responses that your market starts feeding back, you need to maybe adjust a few things. You may need a little bit of a pivot, but make sure that you're getting constant feedback from various metrics. It could be from your sales team. It could be your sales numbers. It could be from your retailers. It could be from the website clicks. But you make sure that those KPIs are set in so you can start understanding how that campaign is performing. Because tracking and measuring results is absolutely vital to build that bank of learnings for future campaigns. If you start realizing, geez, certain channels are working better than others, that's going to help you next time you do a campaign, because you must want to focus and fish where the fish are. All right, team. So I'm going to dial down the theory, I promise. I hope that wasn't too boring and you got a good sense of a few things there. I'm going to jump into a few tips and tactics, because I often get asked by all sorts of business owners, what are the best performing tactics or channels or mediums, whatever you want to call that SMEs and startups can use. So instead of giving you the usual cop-out of, well, it depends on the life stage of your business, or it depends on the category in which you're operating, or my favorite, how long is a piece of string? I'm going to tell you about what's worked more often than not. How's that? Great. With your hard-working, lead-generating, brand-reflective website with Google Analytics plugged in, giving you crucial data, you've got a fantastic home base. A place where you can convert interested parties into leads or even into customers. But beyond the website, beyond your website, the world of digital is very vast. Let's think about it. When customers are looking for something, they Google it. This shows intent. Having your brand appear as a qualified result is incredibly powerful. On another topic, not too long ago, the humble online banner, little display banner that we see next to websites, they had to be specifically built for a specific website. If I wanted to advertise on Health24, I had to build a suite of various banner ads in various sizes with specs and minimum resolutions, all sorts of things, and then hand it over to Media24 to flight on and publish on Health24. What a mission. Where today, through Google's network of sites, which connects millions of sites, you don't buy a website, you buy a target market. Isn't that incredible? No matter, you're buying a target market, regardless of what website that market may be visiting. And also the good old responsive on banners, they've now got things called responsive banners, which means you don't actually have to even build those little banners themselves, little creative elements themselves. You hand over a couple of bits of ads, a few logos, maybe some images, a headline, a few copy lines, a few like almost parts of an ad. You push that into Google. Google then will assemble ads and will start flighting them in different combinations and testing and working out which are the ones are getting the most clicks, which are the ones are performing better, and start optimizing and pushing more of those out. Isn't it incredible? So it's made it very, very accessible to all of us. Remarketing. Another thing. So if you probably aren't doing it at the moment, but I hope not, but if you're planning your next trip to New York City, and you start making some searches, you suddenly get served a huge amount of New York City literature from brands, from other websites, and that's remarketing. And what that allows you to do as a business owner, if anybody comes and visits your website or visits your Facebook page or a couple of your other properties, you can then start serving them ads. Now, some people might say, "Oh, this feels like stalking. Big Brother is watching." But I see the positive, because at least you're getting served content or advertising on a topic or from brands that you've expressed interest in. I'd much rather be served that than other rubbish that doesn't interest me. And the conversion rate, so the rate of somebody visiting your website, then seeing your ad on a banner and clicking back to the website and turning into a lead, is very high. It's one of the highest performing channels or metrics that we've got. Lastly, on social media, I mean, if you just amortize across all the different platforms that are out there, I mean, how amazing is this? You can engage in a tribe of engaged fans. It gives you a soapbox to stand on and talk about your niche, your expert view in your specific niche. It allows you to source the best talent, and on and on and on. So done well, all of these digital channels are cost-effective and very effective ways to reach your market. And for clients with more modest budgets, digital channels often make a big chunk of the recommendation solution that we supply. PR, or public relations, is also a very strong channel and often gets forgotten about. SMEs assume it's unaffordable and only for the big brands. PR is very informative. It's more informative, it's more educational, and it's more credible than most pure advertising channels. Fact. And PR has also grown dramatically over the last couple of years. PR has now grown to include social media. So a lot of PR agencies and PR specialists are involved in social media, which is important. And more recently, in influencer management. So influencers, love them or hate them, are taking the world by storm. They're not going anywhere, guys. So managing influencers well has something that the PR agencies, the good PR agencies, have taken ownership of. And what's happened is, if you take your traditional PR, you add social media, you add influencer management, suddenly PR as a collective offers you a huge broad reach to connect with your market. In fact, it's actually comparable to a lot of big, more broad advertising channels, but in a much more cost-effective manner. So PR is a really good tool to use. Customer relationship management. Oh, what a mouthful. It's abbreviated as CRM. And this could exist in the form of a Facebook group. This could exist in the form of an emailer program. Having a direct and continuous conversation with a group of loyal customers, offering them some form of utility and exclusive advantage, is very important. Don't just send a newsletter, people. No one reads them, no one cares. And as I said earlier, it's got to offer utility. There's got to be some value. It's got to include discounts. It's got to include never seen before. It's got to be of value to warrant that opening of that click or joining that group or commenting. There's got to be something in it for me. I know it sounds selfish, but us as consumers are very selfish. What's in it for me? I'm not going to, unless there's something, I'm not going to click that thing. Also, what's the exclusivity? So I don't want this thing just to be available for everyone. What's in it for me? If I'm going to be special, if I'm part of this group, if I'm part of this program, what's in it for me? Because, you know, the reality is that CRM is often overlooked and replaced with focus of getting new customers. Guys, I'm guilty too. I'm always chasing new customers. And that's a thing. It's a natural trap that we all fall into. But as I'm reminded by what I learned in first year, Marketing 101, all those years ago, it is 10 times easier, quicker, and cheaper retaining an existing customer than gaining a new one. Right, so please take CRM seriously. Apps and tools. So many SMEs are making use of cost-effective apps, tools, and websites for their marketing efforts. And a lot of guys saying, well, geez, are you pro this? Because surely that's a bit of competition. And absolutely, I'm so behind it. It's a really positive thing. Being able to access these things and do these types of marketing activities is amazing. And the more that can do it, the better. Because you can get a logo from Fiverr for $5. You can build your own website through Wix or through GoDaddy. You can design your own social media content through an app like Over. And you can run your own CRM campaign, like I spoke about earlier, through a company like MailChimp. These tools, as I said, have made many marketing activities not only accessible, but cost-effective to startups and SMEs. But, and unfortunately there's a but, the trap that a lot of businesses fall into is leaping into action and doing things at the expense of planning and strategy. Just because you can build a website doesn't mean you necessarily should, or that you're going to be building it in the right way that's going to actually work and going to result in customers and leads and all the other things. So the fact that you've got access doesn't mean that you can't negate planning, strategy, and some experience. Because without defining those brand fundamentals that I spoke about earlier, without really working out that campaign messaging or the thing you want to be saying to your market, or without correctly using these tools, the chances of success is unfortunately lower than you might think, because there are tools after all, not solutions. So coronavirus, COVID-19, it's all we're seeing. It's in the news. It's on our Facebook feeds. It's the only thing we're talking about. It would be remiss for me to not talk about that, because, geez, we're in it. We're right in the middle of it. A lot of people have over the last couple of weeks have been asking me questions about, well, what should I do? Is there stuff to do? Should we hold on? Should we pause things? Should we do stuff now? So I thought what I'd do is let me just give you a couple of the key questions that I've been asked and responses following. What's your advice to startups or SMEs in lockdown? So my quick summation is stay positive. It's harder than you think, I know, but stay positive. We're dealing with so many unknowns, which often leads to anxiety, to fear. But for startups in particular, your fledgling business is right for all the reasons you validated over your setup and launch, your setup and launch phases. All right, I'm going to say that again. Your fledgling business is right for all the reasons you validated over the setup and launch phases. Ask yourself, is the customer problem we're still solving today still relevant? If so, what's changed? What hasn't? You may need just to dig deep and search forward. You may need to adjust a bit, maybe a slight pivot. But whatever you do, don't give up what you risked everything to start. South Africa will need determined entrepreneurs now more than ever. Please, guys, I'm asking you, keep strong, keep positive. How can we continue to build our brand from home? What an opportunity to look at your business in a different light. And I'm inspired by so many startups and SMEs who see this business unusual time as an opportunity to getting things sorted, getting their product refined, getting their business slightly enhanced, building their brand fundamentals. When your day-to-day trading is interrupted, you're gifted with some incredible breathing room to take a more strategic view, a more long-term view on how your business will surface. And if you can harness some of this time for marketing, you're going to come out of this on the front foot. Right? It is an amazing opportunity, and the guys that see it as an opportunity and see the disruption as a wonderful time to get things sorted and get things flying is just the best. So please take a feather out of their caps. Is there any marketing that my business can do this time that doesn't require additional budget? Sure thing. Yes, times are tight, expenses are still racking up. No one's got too much money to spend at this moment in time. So marketing reallocation is going to be rife, but I don't advise switching it off. as I was brainwashed in the big agencies, there's lots of studies that showed that guys that big brands that advertised during recessions, during tough times, that continued business as usual, came out much stronger by the time that we came out of that. And that's true. I've seen it happen again and again. It's during these times when your competitors do cut back that gives you an opportunity to emerge in a stronger position with a louder share of voice. So share of voice is just if you kind of take all your competitors all shouting out, which are the ones that are spending more, which are the ones that are the most loud. And if you, a quick example, so maybe in the insurance game, OUTsurance maybe have the highest share of voice at the moment. So they may have a figure of 4, whatever that number is, and then everyone else is compared and stacked up against that. So your share of voice is an opportunity to come out much stronger if you can keep continuing and doing your thing. But contractual obligations aside, because a lot of guys are locked into various contracts with various media channels, etc. But moving more budget into digital channels would be my big recommendation. Why? You've got housebound customers. They're looking at Facebook, they're looking to Google, they're looking to YouTube for information and entertainment. They may not be necessarily buying due to the lack of fulfillment limitations. So you can't deliver a lot of things. And I felt to this too. I thought I was a genius and I ordered a table tennis table a few days before lockdown, thinking, great, I've got this covered, entertain the kids. Oh, epic failure. Obviously it's sitting in a depot somewhere. I'm not going to get to me anytime soon, but fulfillment is down, right? But customers won't necessarily be buying, but they will be researching. They will be browsing and they'll be planning. So make sure that your brand is there to be seen. What are your tips to reach new audiences now that everyone is stuck at home? So this is a bit linked to the previous question, but following on from that, if there's ever a time to embrace digital, it's now. Updating your website, initiating an SEO program, running a Google search display or paid media, a paid social media campaign, or actually taking the plunge into social media is a perfect time, and it'll only strengthen your marketing efforts. Even actually transitioning your website into an e-commerce website today is much easier, much more cheaper and quicker than you might expect. Your captive audience, literally your captive audience, and your bottom line will thank you for it. What's your personal solution to supporting startups and SMEs in their marketing efforts? And this goes beyond Corona. It's pre, it's during, it's post. Because over the last couple of years, we've worked with about 50, 60 SMEs and startups, and we've slowly been building and refining an offering called Brandright. Because as I said, SMEs, we've realized the importance. They've got the potential to drive the economy, create jobs, and vital to our future, but receive very little support, especially in the form of marketing. So Brandright was founded to change this by delivering a whole bunch of marketing strategies and assets. So both together, that allows business owners to not only launch, but to reinvent or enhance their business. And obviously that really, that resulting, allowing them to earn more, to grow, and to sell more. So Brandright is a tried and tested marketing starter pack, if you will. And it's an intensive 4-month program that delivers everything that a startup needs for a great launch and everything that an SME may need for a purposeful rebrand. So if that's sounding interesting, if you want to find out a little bit more, check out our site. It's on the screen now, brandright.co.za, and you can learn a little bit more there. Great. So in conclusion, what are some of the key takeouts? As I said, I hope I've given you a nice mixture of theory, some practical advice, a few tips to take home. But what are the big things that I'd like to leave you with? Firstly, invest in getting all the basics done properly, upfront, once and for all. I've seen so many guys burn hundreds of thousands of marketing rands doing it doing it poorly or again and again and again. So guys, get it right the first time properly. It's worth it. It'll pay you back in spades. Ensuring your foundations are rock solid will ensure your business will stand the test of time. True story. Complement planning and strategy and thinking on the one hand with doing things in action like building assets and running campaigns on the other. Don't get caught doing one without the other. Also, a big trap that a lot of businesses fall into is they get stuck in this world of planning, strategy, board meetings, discussions, and they can burn years just going in the cycle before they actually do anything. At the same time, if you just rush out and do stuff at the sake of it, that can actually be more harm than good. Making sure that it's balanced and making sure that you've got the right amount of thinking and planning together with the doing is my big advice from that perspective. Thirdly, embrace digital. The world has, your competitors have. Don't get left behind. All right, that's been my big theme for a lot of this talk today. So please, guys, don't get left behind. Keep it simple. Marketing is not rocket science, but it can be overwhelming if you do it all in one go. There's lots of bits, lots of moving parts. Don't try and do it all at once. Start your marketing journey in a linear, methodical fashion. And I know that's not sexy. At the moment, we love doing things in parallel and two-dimensional, three-dimensional. If you do this thing in a linear fashion, you're going to do things properly. You aren't going to waste time, and you're not going to waste your marketing rands, which we know is very important. And lastly, as I said earlier, guys, we're not alone. We will recover. This too shall pass. Stay positive. All right. So thanks again to Work in Progress. Thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting this session. For you guys, thanks for your interest. Thanks for your time. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please do so via the Brandright website. If you're looking for a new co-working space and you're interested in becoming a member of Work in Progress, please email the address on the screen to get all the information that you need. All right. So guys, I hope that's been relatively enjoyable. I hope I gave you a bit of break from Netflix. But I'm going to answer a couple of questions. I'm getting fed a few questions from our colleague now. So if you'd like to still pop a comment in the feed below or email the link cpt@workinprogress.coza, and I'm going to try and answer a couple of these questions shortly. Okay, so let's see. Who's number one? All right. I've got a question. So sorry, I'm speaking on my phone here. I've got a question from Guy Harris. What differentiates a high growth potential business from a trundling along or declining one? Looking at attributes. Sure, that's quite a complicated question. All right, for Guy Harris, what differentiates a high growth potential business from a trundling along or declining one? Looking at attributes. Well, so in my experience, obviously a business that can grow, it's got to be a lot of potential. It's got to be able to scale. So what are the things that you can do to scale that business beyond man hours, beyond time? And technology has been a huge impact of that. So I'll give you a quick example. One of our clients, HouseMe, they're an amazing business. They're a prop tech business. We helped launch them 3 years ago, and we still work with them today. And they had this idea, and they realized that the world of residential rental was dominated by two methods. You either had to, if you owned a rental property, you either had to go and find a tenant on Gumtree, advertise it through one of the property portals, and then you effectively acted as the managing agent, or you went and paid 10% to a managing agent and they'll do that for you. So HouseMe came along and said, well, let's do this thing a little bit differently. But they used tech enable them to scale it. And I think just within the last year or so, they're up to 1,000 landlords. So they're able to use an opportunity. So there was a real need in the market, offering something that was cost effective with lots of benefits and value. And in fact, that satisfies both tenants and landlords, which is great, because often there's a winner or a loser. In HouseMe, as an example, both come out very strong. So in that example, their business idea, their brand satisfied the market. There's an opportunity. There was very few players in that space, and they used technology to be able to absolutely clean up there. And they're just going from strength to strength. Amazing bunch. So go check out house.me if you're interested in that. But compared to a business that's trundling along, if your business is reliant on personnel, if it's reliant on hours, if it's particularly if it's in a service business, there's obviously only so many hours you can actually put to it. We can suddenly start, if you've got the opportunity to productize things, if you've got an opportunity to be able to have a broader group of people doing it or servicing your business, that's incredible. If it's up to the business owner, him or herself, that's when it starts becoming tricky. And because let's be real, even if you burn the midnight oil, there's only so many hours you can devote to it. So making sure you've got a great partner or a great management team in place, making sure that your team can also deliver, so it's not all reliant on one or two people, will also absolutely help. I hope I've sort of answered your question, Guy Harris. If not, shoot me a mail and I'll continue the conversation by mail. Let's move on to the second question. All right, Asanda Manu, how do you get customers to stay? How do we come up with powerful ways to make it convenient for our customers to be loyal to us? Okay, so great question. How do you get customers to stay? Well, that's something that we've experienced just personally, and there's obviously it's all dependent on the category or industry in. But as an agency, the big guys, my old world of those first 10 years was very much around retainers. You got a big client, you lock them in with a scope of work of things you're going to deliver, and you're locked in. You're sorted for a year, for 2 years, for however long. And as long as you're relatively delivered on that, you were pretty safe. When we launched Watson Ferguson marketing agency, as well as Brandright, we didn't want that. We didn't want to be like a cell phone contract where you're locked in for 10 years and you're stuck. We hated that notion. So we went about it saying we only want to do projects and we only want to be as good as the last project. So at any time, the client or customer has got an opportunity to leave. So for me, if you're that confident in your service and business, if you believe in it, if you offer the value and you know the value is real, then your customers are going to stick around, because why go anybody else? Don't give them a reason to go anywhere else. And don't be threatened by competitors too. Competitors will always come, and competitors will come and maybe undercut you in price, or they may start eliciting your customer, start engaging with them. But don't be threatened about that. Make sure that you are constantly evolving, making sure you aren't stuck doing it how you did 3 years ago. Make sure that you are always offering them the best, offering as much value as possible. That utility I spoke about earlier in the CRM program, a utility or value or something substantial is vital. It can't just be, because what I'm seeing more and more is the brands that kind of knew they were getting away with it. They knew that they were overcharging their client. They knew that they were, kind of busking it, and they're going to ride that for as long as possible. Those guys have been caught out, and the customers left, or they've halved the cost or the fees. So make sure that if I can give advice, be on the front foot there. It's not always perfect, but be on the front foot if you can. Always be offering new value. Always be bringing something to your customer or client. So that would be my big answer there. There's a second part to that. How do we come up with powerful ways to make it convenient for our customers to be loyal to us? So again, that's about having a relationship with your brand and your customers. So giving them reasons to stick around and be loyal. So if you kind of go to that CRM example, we did this with one of our clients. They run a really top bicycle shop here in Cape Town, and just by giving that group of 300 past customers, fans, enthusiasts, giving them access to ride the latest new Trek bike that's just landed, or an offer to be first to get a new saddle, or 10% discount. Just by offering that group special value means that they're all going to go in and they're going to keep supporting. So don't make it easy for your competitors to come in. And remember, it's not all about price though, guys. It's about value. So if you can give them something special, something unique, something interesting that they can't get anywhere else, then you've got a good chance of success. All right, I've got another question here. Okay. Right, I'm actually going to respond to this question via mail. It's a little bit more tricky. Okay, guys. Perfect. All right. So I'm actually going to wrap up now. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks for the interest. Thanks for your time. And yeah, I really appreciate it. So please, guys, keep well, stay safe, and goodbye, everybody. Thanks so much.